Okay, good morning and welcome to Monos, featuring me, Monica Mo Justice. Uh, I can't with y'all. Okay, today we got we got a good 45 minutes um to really hash out a topic. Today's conversation will be focused around. Yes, you are first, honey. It will be focused around a lawsuit filed by filed on behalf of prisoners in Mississippi. So apparently Jay Z's team something. He got an organization, so it'd be nice if I know more of this shit. But apparently he has filed a lawsuit against the Mississippi prison. Actually, he filed a lawsuit on behalf of inmates incarcerated in Mississippi. And it sounds like this is a federal jail, but we'll get into it. Um, um, Jay Z's um, the philanthropic organization. Um, well, I was late because I was, trying to fix my hair because, uh, um, the only influencer that matters. No, I got like a nasty influence moment last or somewhere in the middle of the night, and somebody was like, "What happened to Mo that looks like something? Mo looks like shit." So I was like, even if I felt like shit back in the days, you never know it. So I had to pin up. I had to wake up. So I saw the text message like 4 o'clock in the morning. So I had to wake up, blow out my hair, pin curl my hair with the pins. Y'all know cause how I feel about. And then work with what came out this morning. So this is what 2 hours later. Hey Boogie, so we're gonna get into it. I pulled the lawsuit because my channel, as you know, is focused on Good Morning San Francisco and Good Morning Boogie. It's focusing on covering things that involve justice or injustice or what our pursuit of justice looks like. And here it is. Now, I had a hard time pulling this shiz this morning. I had to be like, Google everything to try to find them. But anywho, let me see how to say this because I don't want to say y'all not gonna believe I'm putting on my stockings and I have to stand up to get my stockings on. So I'm gonna have to go behind the avatar because you folks, y'all be like stripping, getting naked on a live is prohibited. Let me see. And this morning I'm gonna stay to this one issue. Oh, freakazoid. How did I put that over there with this? All right, I gotta move that one. Ugh, this is not what I want. What I want. Let me just save the changes to this. All right, hold on. We're gonna have to do a new Google search. I'll go with this one. I'm doing the daily news. We don't normally use them as a source. How's everything going in baby to be land? Hey, MATC. Okay, so Mississippi's prisons are in crisis, and Jay Z is stepping out. Jay Z is stepping out up to help, allegedly. Over the past 2 decades, 2 weeks, 5 inmates have died in an explosion of prison violence sparked by understaffing and a lack of funding. Okay, they are saying that a prison guard in Mississippi makes $26,000 a year. I need to figure out, and for any of y'all that do research, what is the average cost of living in Mississippi? MISSI, SSI, PPI. Ooh, 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 ooh. Okay. Um, Facing a spat of riots, gang warfare, and general chaos, including a pair of escaped inmates. Would you want to stay locked up in this shit? If I could get out, I would get out. I don't blame them. But now they just got added time in the crazy place, in the place that has no structure. That's what it sounds like. Anywho, um, the state's Department of Corrections imposed a system-wide lockdown. So, you know what happens when they impose a lockdown? That means inmates are supposed to be, thank you, $43,000 is the average amount of money. So they make about half the average, they're paid about half the average salary, uh, the medium salary for Mississippi. Remember, each state has its own cost of living. Um, Calculations based on um, the state's economy. Okay, so the Department of Corrections imposed a statewide lockdown. So, what is a lockdown? A lockdown means that all inmates are supposed to be in their cells. No one is in or out of the facility. That means there's no visitors during the lockdown period. It means just that lockdown. But somehow, in this lockdown period, you have inmates releasing video. Yes, inmates are releasing cell phone footage of what's going on inside of the prison. Now, when I first started listening to this story last week, when I wanted to share it with y'all, I was listening to a couple things, and what I heard and what I'm not hearing now is two different stories. So, originally, what I heard is that there is a transition in the prison system where they are moving inmates from these chaotic situations or these dysfunctional prisons, these understaffed prisons, to private facilities. Now, everyone knows or should be well aware of the fact when there is a new order in place, which means that when government can no longer pay for something and no longer is willing to pay for it and fund it itself, it normally goes to, it looks for a way to privatize its public program. And one of the easiest ways to move to a private program is one of the easiest ways to move to a private program is to mess up the public program. And then there's an outcry that there needs to be a change. Then there is a response that we are unable to manage it. So we are shifting these responsibilities over to a private organization, and we will pay the private organization to do what the public could not do because we were unable to fulfill that responsibility. Now the question becomes, and this is what I want y'all to look into and keep a open mind about it, right? Who is the private prison? Who is funding the private prisons? Now, I'm not going to call no names right now because I don't have no evidence in black and white to support these next comments. So they will be in an investigative format. The whose interests are we serving? For months, years, and weeks, I have heard that there are many high-powered former NBA players, NFL players, people of color with money who have poured millions of their dollars into programs that fund private prisons. So I'm always telling us, be careful what we rally against. We need more clarity around who's the players in all of these, who's the players in respect to the private organization, the private companies that will get these inmates. Because what I heard the other day was that they were shifting the inmates from the public facility to the private facility, but they had the first instill order. And of course, if you've lived inside a jail where you've had rats and no room for opportunity and all the conditions that are probably contained in this brief, they will, um, these new private facilities sound like a blessing in disguise. But we have to be cautious. What, whose magistrate is this outrage serving? So I heard that at first, and it started with it, and I heard it over, and I'm sorry, guys, I heard it over in the cornfields when my dodo bird self was over in the cornfields. So you gotta follow the channel to know where the cornfields are at. But I was over in the cornfields listening as I normally do. Whenever I enter the cornfields, I go into listening mode. And while I was learning to listen to them, there was an inmate, a Caucasian inmate's mother, who started this outrage stuff over there. And they've done the shift. So while in the cornfields, this is what I heard in the cornfields, that they were moving the prisoners over into private facilities. Now back to our local neighborhood. I've heard nothing of the such over there, over here. So I'm gonna bring you the information that they brought us. This is my small Gucci. Okay, so y'all making me look like an old lady these days. Oh, fuck a slave. Okay, so the lawsuit is being as we continue on in our elements, it says, all right, okay, though it was lifted last week, the core problem, so the lockdown was lifted last week. The core problems that created such tragedy have not yet come close to being solved. In response to the deaths and cruel conditions they've dealt with while incarcerated, a group of 29 Mississippi inmates has sued the head of the state's Department of Corrections, Felicia Hall, and Marshall Turner, superintendent of the state penitentiary. The prisoners are aided in part by the rappers Jay Z and Yo Gotti. Okay, so Yo Gotti is a resident of Mississippi. So you see how you have to have people of influence connected in order to file these things. Um, okay, San Francis, if you could see my glasses, please have a seat in the lounge. I can't with you this morning. I don't want you up on the screen, honey, looking to see improvements here. Okay, just listen. We're using our fifth agreement, learning to listen. That's what we're doing. All right. The prisoners are aided by rappers Jay Z and Yo Gotti. According to NBC News, Alex Spiro is one of the lawyers representing the group in 2019 when 21 Savage was arrested by ICE. It was Jay Z and Spiro who helped fight for his release. We cannot treat people this way, and it's time to do something about it, said Spiro to the news media. Um, the lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court on Tuesday states bluntly that plaintiffs' lives are in peril, and it asks the state to affirm their rights to be protected from harm and to develop a practical plan that will minimize the risks that they face while in prison. Now, what would be phenomenal with this lawsuit, since it is being funded by Jay Z and what's this dude? Spiro, what would be phenomenal is if an amicus brief is filed by correction officers. That would make this thing so much more powerful because the safety, see, we're looking at the inmates right now, but the safety of all that participate, everyone that works, that occupies that facility. So that be the inmate who is who is the core business person. They didn't have the product, being the inmate, they wouldn't be able to function. And see, that's what they're getting rid of is the product. But if corrections officers would join this lawsuit, it to me it would make it more potent because it's saying the safety and the deplorable standards inside of the facility need to be corrected for all concerned, so that the people that work there are safe as well as the people that live there. We have an amendment that says you have that protects you from cruel and unusual punishment. This, in fact, is cruel and unusual punishment when the facility that you're resided in has safety issues to this level, that they lock it down and the prisoners have taken over the facility. But if you've been involved in this justice fight, you will know that whenever there's a prison uprising, it wasn't just, it didn't just come out of the blue. It comes out of the fact that there is mismanagement. If you read the book Solitary, which was on our 2019 list, Woodward um, explains a time when there were uprisings in the jailhouse that he resided in, which ultimately resulted in his arrest. And why he stayed in prison for 40 years is because an officer was killed in the prison. When you fail to protect, and you fail to protect the people that work in the prison as well as the people that live inside the prison, you prepare them for failure. And actually, the circumstances that arise out of this, uprisings of this nature, is what happens. All right, I saw some comments in here. Let me see. Okay, all right. So y'all just good. I think it would be considerate. I think it would be considered one of the worst places to go to prison. Well, listen, prison is not supposed to be. Prison is okay. This is the prison that we're learning about. If you are following prisons, they close down, or they're in the process of closing Rikers Island. But they made Rikers Island here in New York inhabitable. And what did they do in turn? They built 5 prisons. So apparently, in which we all know they had correctional facilities in each of the boroughs. Anyway, they had Queens House of Detention, Brooklyn House of Detention, Bronx House of Detention. I don't know what Staten Island got. We never know what Staten Island got. And Manhattan has the tombs, right? Yes, I'm coming. Manhattan has the tombs. So each borough has a place where it can house its prisoners in New York, right? Uh, So what did New York do? I don't want to shift conversations, but they addressed it. They built their own. They are uh, re doing with those prisons that they got. I know they had two in Queens anyway, because we had one in our neighborhood, where my parents live at, and people were protesting it. We didn't even know the shit was back there, and that's a damn shame because I always played back there and didn't even know there was a prison back there. But they had a prison, but I, I don't want to get off topic, but that's what they do. This is all creative. Please hold while I deal with Nugget. I knew I should have brought your damn thing with me. All right, and I'm also frustrated because I am missing. I'm missing you. Seeing it, seeing. All right. Okay. I had to take care. Yeah, Bronx has two. Manhattan has two too. They have one down. They have one in like the LIC area, and then they have one in um Long Island City area. I know we have one in Jamaica, but that's Springfield Gardens. That's like really in there. It's a race war jumps off, breaking all the brothers in prison out. I can't have the nerve to read that. Um, we already seen what happens when we leave them behind and incarcerated. We got Katrina to tell us what happened to the Katrina catastrophe. All right, I want to just make sure that I just write out my talking points. That this is funding, or this is a pipeline to private prisons, because all this lawsuit is going to do is going to expedite the transition to the private establishment, because it's going to establish that. I mean, I just have to cut to the chase. Wow. Because I get so tired of us talking about we seeking justice for shit, but we never look at what the consequences of that justice is going to be. It's going. This is just a pipeline. This lawsuit is just a pipeline to the private prisons, which probably already exist, and uh, who's so who owns the private prisons? Would it be something if people find out that the folks that are raising much hell about this celebrity isms, that they have somehow contributed to the growth or the population of the growth or the foundation of prison, private prison. Makes you wonder. And my question becomes, and that's why I put their name in the title, the NFL, because if Jay-Z filed this, right, in concert with his organization, damn Boogie, what's the name of his philanthropic? It's Team something. I'm not into Jay-Z, so where's King of Foe when I need him? He definitely follows Jay-Z. The harm caused by these problems finally reached a boiling point earlier this month. All right, let's see what the problem is. The lawsuit The lawsuit notes that the population in Mississippi prisons has increased while funding has decreased dramatically, and the results have been disastrous. Nearly half of the Mississippi's prison guard jobs are unfilled. So they have I thought I saw a clip that said they have 600 guards actually working when they should have 13. They have 1,300 positions. Um, and as a result, the buildings are plagued with violence. Prisoners also live in abhor- they said abhorrent conditions where their basic needs aren't met. According to the lawsuit, which specifically focused on the penitentiary in Parchman, located in the northwest of the state, the harm caused by these the harm caused by these problems finally reached a boiling point earlier this month, leading to multiple stabbings and an unprecedented level of violence in the prisons. According to the suit, so many inmates were injured in Parchman, that there wasn't enough room in the medical facility to hold them. In addition to the lawsuit, Spiro has also sent a letter to Hall and Mississippi's governor, Phil Bryant, on behalf of Jay Z and Yo Gotti. In the letter, Spiro said that he and his team were prepared to pursue all potential avenues to obtain relief for the people living in Mississippi's prisons and their families. Rock Nation. So I think that's what it is. And it's philanthropical. There it is. Philanthropic arm. Team Rock. That's what it's called. Did you know that, Boogie? It's Team Rock. Well, Boogie's probably traveling to. Now, notice it's Team Rock filing this. Where's the NFL? And what does this say to the NFL if Jay Z is taking on this philanthropic adventure? Um, what say the NFL? What are they going to back up? And is this good branding now for the NFL if they end up back in prison? Because at the end of the day, folks are going to look at it like people are incarcerated, and why would the flow just seems bad? I know of Rock Nation, not Team Rock. Okay, so they said that um, Rock Nation and its philanthropic arm, Team Rock, demand that Mississippi take immediate steps to remedy this intolerable conditions. So you see what they said? The remedy that the relief they're seeking is that they remedy the immediate this intolerable situation, and the remedy is going to be, since it's intolerable, and it's inhabitable in some cases to move them, the prisoners, from where to where. So this is the public outcry that is going to open the door to the private facility. Now I am all for the lawsuit. I'm all for the outrage, but I just want people to understand that when we black folks get upset about something, we end up making white folks richer. Pause. Because they already managed the risk that we are going to find this unacceptable, that people are going to find these conditions unacceptable. And they probably already have the places for them to go. They just didn't have the momentum to push the prisoners into the new facility. And your outrage will get them there faster. And who do we support? This is what we got to understand what our justice looks like. Do I, you, or anybody of color own stake in? I never even thought about that, guys. Why not build our own private prisons? Let's think about that. We would incarcerate our own, rehabilitate them to a level that they could reacclimate into society, and we maybe can address the recidivism better. Well, let's see what these private facilities do. Ah, this is a 10-page lawsuit. I'm taking y'all through it for the first time. I don't want to list all these prisoners' names, but it says by and through their undersigned attorneys filed this complaint against defendant Patricia E. Hall in her official capacity as the Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Corrections and Marshall Turner in his official capacity as the Superintendent of the Mississippi State Penitentiary, and alleged as follows. So these are all allegations. These have not been proven. They would have to prove this in order to prevail in their suit. Plaintiffs live in peril. Individuals held in the Mississippi prisons are dying because Mississippi has failed to fund its prisons, resulting in prisons where violence reigns because prisons are understaffed. In the past 2 weeks alone, 5 men incarcerated in Mississippi have died as a result of prison violence. These deaths are in these deaths are a direct result of Mississippi's utter disregard for the people it has incarcerated and their constitutional rights. The unthinkable spat of deaths in the culmination of years of severe understaffing and neglect at Mississippi's prisons. As Mississippi has incarcerated increasing numbers of people, it has dramatically reduced its funding of prisons. Nearly half of the prison guard slots for Mississippi prisons remain unfilled. I'm finding this interesting. There's no concrete numbers to support this claim in a lawsuit. The Mississippi State Penitentiary at Parchman, a maximum security prison built on the site of a former plantation, has only 1/4 of the correction officers it needs. So you have 1/4, but there's no specific numbers. Interesting. Without adequate guards, prisons are plagued by violence, with incarcerated people fearing for their lives. So, incarcerated people are fearing for their lives. I could just see the opposite side of this. People are going to say, We were in fear for our lives when these incarcerated people were part of society. They should have thought about that shit before they got themselves incarcerated. In the first week of 2020, 3 men died at Parchment alone. The underfunding also forces people held in Mississippi's prisons to live in squalor, endangering their physical and mental health. The prisons have failed to provide the basic necessities such as a place to sleep. In Parchment, the units are subject to flooding, black mold festers, rats and mice infest the prison, units lack running water and electricity for days at a time. Observers, including state and federal officials, have realized that Mississippi has fostered an environment for prison violence, describing the conditions as abhorrent, citing the widespread violence and unnecessary conditions. I wonder where they cited this at. Um, the inhumane conditions are unconstitutional. The Eighth Amendment of the United States Constitution prohibits the infliction of cruel and unusual punishment, and is violated when prison officials fail to protect against prison-related violence and when conditions fail to meet basic human needs. The conditions present a grave and imminent danger to plaintiffs. By this action, plaintiffs seek immediate relief from these unconstitutional conditions. Okay. So that's um the nature uh, of their claim. Um it lists all the people's names here who are probably being beat right now as we speak because their names are on this shit. Um, they are individuals incarcerated in the Mississippi. So now there's a section of a lawsuit that you have to identify the parties involved and why they have standing or jurisdiction. I always say jurisdiction. As individuals incarcerated at the Mississippi State Penitentiary, then they list the defendants and why they are suing them, why they the defendant named in here. The Mississippi Department of Corrections, known as MDOC, by statute, MDOC is vested with the exclusive responsibility for managing and control of the correctional system and all properties belonging thereto, and shall be responsible for the management of affairs of the correctional system and for the proper care, treatment, feeding, clothing, and management of the offenders confined therein. Mississippi Code A annotated section 14-5-23. The commissioner has the duty and authority to do the following: establish the general policy of the department, implement and administer laws and policies related to corrections, and establish standards and exercise the requisite supervision as it relates to the correctional programs over all state supported adult correctional facilities. As commissioner, Defendant Hall has the ultimate responsibility for ensuring that all prisons under the jurisdiction, so you see where they say all prisons, so that doesn't mean that it has to just be the public ones. It can also be the private ones under the jurisdiction of MDOC operate in compliance with state and federal law. Individuals at Parchment have sent numerous complaints to Defendant Hall, and Defendant Hall has personally inspected Parchment on multiple occasions. At all times relevant hereto, she has acted under color of state law. Defendant Hall is sued in her official capacity. So they're not suing her personally, just her in her official capacity. Additionally, allegations regarding defendant's Hall conduct are set forth herein. And then they list why they defended Marshall Turner, supervisor of the Mississippi State Penitentiary. Defendant Turner is aware of the problems at Parchment and has failed to take reasonable measures to abate the substantial risk or serious harm set forth herein. At all times relevant here to defendant Turner has acted under color of state law. Defendant Turner is sued in his official capacity. So jurisdiction and venue. This action arises under the United States Constitution and 14 USC Section 1983. Jurisdiction proper in this court pursuant to 28 USC section 1331 and 28 USC section 1343 subsection A, subsection 3, and subsection 4. Venue lies properly with the district pursuant to 28 USC section 1391 subsection B, subsection 1 through 2, because a substantial part of the event giving rise to the claims. Facts. For years, Mississippi has dramatically underfunded its prisons. As a result, the prison system has, as a whole, is chronically understaffed. On average, nearly half the prison corrections officials' position remain unfilled. A year ago, the MDOC issued a press release stating that the MDOC needed help to address staffing, that it was a public safety. See how this just all ties into what's the bigger picture? They did this a year ago. They said they needed help. What do you think was happening in that year? This will be an Yvonne moment. Like, what does she say? How does Yvonne do it? She doesn't do it. Hello, but she does something. I like it when she does it. At the time, the staffing crisis at Parchment amounted to 42% staff vacancy rate. The staffing crisis has persisted. These long-standing problems have in recent weeks reached a boiling point that imperils plaintiffs and places them in imminent danger or of serious physical injury. 5 recent deaths in the Mississippi prison. So you see how they say in the Mississippi prisons, but I think it's only 3 that was in Parchment. 3 of these deaths occurred in Parchment in the first week of the year. All right, Walter Gates, an inmate of Unit 29E at Parchment, was stabbed multiple times the night of New Year's Eve. I guess he did make it into the new year. And pronounced dead just after midnight. Oh, he did make it into the new year. So they get funded for him because he made it into the new year. Okay. Roosevelt, somebody, was stabbed to death in a fight the next day. And somebody else, an inmate, Howell, was stabbed multiple times and pronounced dead the day after that. The county coroner described the recent spat of violence at Parchment as unprecedented. Also, it's okay, but this is just unprecedented. Noting that so many were injured in the prison violence that the Parchment Medical Facility was unable to accommodate them all. T, how you doing? Okay, so the neglected state of prison facilities fosters the environment for violence. I agree with that. Parchment is overcrowded and has insufficient um, mattresses for its population, leaving inmates sleeping on the floor. The physical facilities reflect the scars of neglect, with light fixtures missing and holes in the walls. Toilets backed up, resulting in floors covered with raw sewage. Electricity and running water are provided only sporadically. At Parchment, drinking water repeatedly has failed to meet federal safety standards. The prisoners' average sewage system is such disrepair that it has been cited for violating the Federal Clean Water Act. So that means the facility in its current format is uninhabitable. Do you see the outrage here? It's uninhabitable. So sounds like I forgot. Flint, Michigan, Michigan. All right. Um, in 2019, Mississippi Department of Health inspection of Parchment found more than, so this is something else happened in 2019. More than 400 cells with problems such as flooding and leaks, lack of lights, power, and water, broken toilets and sinks, as well as missing pillows and mattresses. Hundreds of other environmental deficiencies were also identified by the inspection, including exposed wiring and mildew. Now, could somebody look up Parchment for me? Is Parchment the death penalty jail? For some reason, I'm feeling a certain kind of way about Parchment. Hundreds of other environmental deficiencies were also identified by the inspection. Um, and it's Parchman. The MDOC itself has described Unit 29 of Parchment as unsafe for staff and inmates because of age and general deterioration. So the facility is falling apart and they know about it. These conditions, in and of themselves, present a serious risk of imminent harm. They threaten the life of the people living within Parchment's walls and put them at a substantial risk of developing chronic and serious illness. Causes of action. So count one. By their policies and practices described herein, defendants subject plaintiffs to substantial risk. So they said they're violating the eighth. So count one is that they're violating the Eighth and 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which is a protection from harm. That's count number one. Um, It says the policies and practices have been and continue to be implemented by defendants and their agents, officials, employees, and or persons acting in concert with them under color of law in their official capacities and are the cause of the plaintiff's ongoing deprivation of rights occurred secured by the United States Constitution under the 8th and 14th Amendments. Defendants have been and are aware of all the deprivations complained of herein and have condoned or been deliberately indifferent to such conduct. Count number two, the 8th and 14th Amendments of the Constitution, environmental conditions. So they're tying the 8th Amendment to the 14th Amendment because the 8th Amendment says cruel and unusual punishment. So they're violating it by this, which is environmental conditions. They're violating the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, because they're unable to protect them from harm. I really feel like that if I was answering this in the other side, I'd be like, these are people that are fucking dangerous in the first place. Okay. Um, guess what, y'all? Those are the only two counts. Do you see the shift? Let me just not keep doing that. Y'all could. I don't have to set your mind in any direction. They're only talking about protect that the environment is unsafe based on the conditions of the facility, and they're established a good case that it's inhabitable. If you had lived in an apartment building and you had these kind of inhabitable thing conditions, they may vacate the facility. That's all this is doing. Uh, let's go down to. I think I covered enough of that. Y'all get the point, right? Let's go down to the request for relief. Plaintiffs have no adequate remedy. Let me read that again. Plaintiffs have no adequate remedy at law to redress the wrong suffered at set forth in this complaint. Plaintiffs will continue to suffer irreparable injury as a result of the unlawful acts, omissions, policies, and practices of the defendants, as alleged herein, unless this court grants the relief requested. The need for relief is critical because the rights at issue are paramount under the United States Constitution and the laws of the United States. Herein, plaintiffs respectfully request a judge, a judge, and declare that the acts, omissions, policies of the defendant and all the people acting in concert of the color of the state law or otherwise as described herein are in violation of the rights of, so they want them to rule that they're in violation of their rights. Preliminarily and permanently enjoin defendants, their agents, employees, officials, and all persons acting in concert with them under the color of law from subjecting plaintiffs to the illegal and unconstitutional conditions, omissions, policies. So, what's the relief? Other defendants to develop and implement as soon as practical a plan to eliminate. So they're only asking for a plan to eliminate the substantial risk of serious harm that plaintiffs suffer due to filthy and dangerous conditions and failure to protect incarcerated people from violence. Defendants' plan shall include at a minimum the following: protection from harm, protection from prison violence and failure to timely respond to emergency conditions. Um, and the second is environmental conditions, providing safe and clean conditions free from filth and vermin and with adequate access to exercise, outdoor recreation, showers, lighting, sanitation, plumbing, ventilation, and other human needs. issue a judgment against defendants in the amount to be determined at trial, award plaintiffs the cost of this suit, retain jurisdiction of this case until defendants have fully complied with the orders, and grant this shit. Um, I'm coming, T. We will explore this later, but this is the beginning of what I should have went to that part first. That part right there. Anyway, this is Mo. I gotta go to work. I don't work for the prison facilities. I don't know. I don't know. I gotta go back to school. I need to become an attorney because this shit right here make me mad.